Now presenting
the RKUltra podcast,
expanding your minds.
whether you want it or not.
Welcome to RKUltra. Now, I know I say this literally every episode, but this episode is a very special episode. It is indeed, because we're going to be talking about MKUltra, which is what we take our namesake from. It was an illegal program run by the CIA through 1950 to 1974, I believe. And it was pretty scary. And also today, we're going to have our very special guest, Kristin, come back and talk to us about this. And I wanted her for this episode because she's been our cheerleader from day one. Always,
Always there for us.
number one fan. And, I'd like to thank her for these beautiful RKUltra mugs. Now I'm a real podcaster. I love it. I can drink my Coke Zero or whatever out of it.
Oh yeah, we're going pro.
And you can't lose them because if you turn them around, what's on the back?
That's right.
Oh my God.
So thank you so much. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. And let's not forget, 30th episode, gentlemen. Congratulations.
This is true. This is the 30th episode in studio.
I tell you, this is wonderful. So thank you for having me. This is like, what's what made you?
Yeah.
The MK made the RK.
Our namesake.
And we've been trying to really do this episode justice for so long, but it's a very complicated issue. Yeah, subject. It's a deep rabbit hole.
It is. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think because it's real.
Yeah.
You can't refute it. It's out there. We know it. The government released it. And I don't know. It's a bit of a torn subject if you think about it. I mean, I understand our government and the world and everything that's going on in it back then and even now. You always want to find a solution, an answer, a workaround, a reach around, if you will. But if you really dive into this, which I know we're going to with a very specific amount of time because this could go on forever, this was our government working for us, but also working against us.
It's true.
So it's a bittersweet. It's a tug of war on this one.
It's really relevant to today's society.
Mm-hmm.
With all of the mind control devices that we carry in our pockets or we see on the streets, like through advertisement and things of that nature. So
electronics, technology, it's all a drug now. So it doesn't have to just be LSD, like they did in the MK. But right now it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's back up to the beginning of this a little bit. I'm going to explain the origins of the program. You see, after the Korean War, namely, there was a lot of POWs that came back, and they were spouting off communist propaganda and saying a lot of weird stuff. And our government assumed that other governments had created some sort of way to control minds, so they set out to do the same thing.
Yeah, our boys would never do that. Come on. After fighting the enemy, they were in the prisoner of war camps?
Yeah, I mean, they were, prisoners of war that were
Or
held
they were
for a
prisoners
long time.
of war, yeah.
Yeah, they came back tortured, and, they seemed to have been, changed by their experience.
Definitely. And you need to know why. Not just for the men that came back, but for the future of the country.
Yeah.
How'd they do that? Why did it happen?
Exactly.
So then enters in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We did some stuff.
Yeah.
We made some friends.
Oh, yeah.
With some maybe not some nice people to learn what they did.
Yeah.
I think it was Operation Paperclip is what happened. It was when they took over some Nazi scientists who were conducting these experiments over mind control with drugs, LSD, and other things like that to try to crack somebody's mind and make them, basically their Manchurian candidate.
Yeah, see, the Nazis actually chiefly used mescaline, which is another psychedelic drug.
Cacti.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the CIA instituted LSD instead. They tested it on basically everyone. I mean, the list is insanely long of the test subjects and wide. It was prisoners. It was mental patients. It was regular civilians. It was
veterans.
Their own agents.
Yep.
They dosed their buddies to see what would happen.
Knowingly, unknowingly.
Mm-hmm.
Jails, hospitals. And it's funny because we even dragged the Canadians into it.
Oh, yeah. And they got it bad.
Yep, we borrowed them.
Oh, no, yeah. The Canadian doctor, there was no knowledge in Canada that that program was even running at the time, but the CIA funded a Canadian doctor named Donald Ewan Cameron, who ran a psych ward. So people would drop off their relatives for benign things like too much anxiety or depression, and this guy would do insane experiments on these people. He would keep them under for 23 days in a row and play messages over and over, supposedly to bring the person into a better mental state, but it did not work. I mean, there's...
Total opposite.
Yeah.
Absolute opposite.
Didn't they keep somebody high on LSD for 174 days or something?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was in that Canadian experiment, but yes, one mental patient was kept high on LSD for 174 consecutive days.
When Paperclip, and if I'm moving too fast, please stop me.
No.
Because it just, there's a lot. It's
There's a lot
flowing.
of
It's
information.
flowing.
There's so much.
Paperclip became our Project Bluebird. Project Bluebird was actually, we're getting ready to hit the 72-year anniversary of it. It actually launched on August 20th, 1951. And that is when they started using LSD. Well, actually, strike that. Reverse, flip it. They did heroin, cocaine, mescaline, peyote. Peyote was the segue to get us into the LSD.
Pretty much anything psychoactive.
Absolutely, because that's what triggers, chemicals in your brain to react differently, and it helps you figure out better ways to retain information, loss of information, and that's exactly what they were looking for.
Yeah.
And then Bluebird flipped into Artichoke, Project Artichoke.
Project Artichoke,
Yep.
right.
So, I don't know.
Yeah. And Artichoke is the one right before MKUltra.
That is what, so basically Bluebird and Artichoke had a baby,
Yeah.
and then MKUltra was born,
Yeah.
and then it went off the rails.
Full-blown mind
off the rails.
warfare, basically.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And so it wasn't just drugs. It was it didn't so when MKUltra came out, it wasn't initially just about the drug trials. They really had a focus on mind manipulation through like a list of 20 different things. Drugs was on that list, mostly psychedelics, because LSD is non-habit forming. It's odorless, it's tasteless, it's a powder, it's crystalline. You could get it pretty much into anything, water, aerosol,
Yeah,
you name it.
Doesn't take much.
No, and that's the thing too. That's why the dosing was an important step on the list of the 20 things. But they dabbled in funny things like psychic abilities, mind reading, hyperbolic chambers.
Electroshock even.
Correct.
Yeah.
So they kind of went through the gamut. It's almost like nowadays when you get to a doctor's office, they write you a prescription and you bring it to the pharmacy. These insurance companies, they'll say, oh, before you try this drug because it's the top of the line, you have to go through step therapy. You got to try all this stuff before you get what we know you really need. That's essentially what MKUltra was. They wanted to do every step before they got you to what eventually they became the most famous for, was LSD.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy what they did to people.
Oh, yeah, and their goals were so open and wide. You know? Like, people always ask, well, what were they trying to do with this? I mean, the goals were all the way from trying to get people to confess things to mind erasure to creating a Manchurian candidate that would kill without knowledge. Yep. The list is, they were like, hey, we're just going to drug these people and whatever. If we get one of these...
Involuntary, what is it? It says involuntary act of attempted assassination.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. We'll just go ahead and load this guy up and send him on his way, and he'll pop a cap in someone, and then the next thing you know, we ring a little bell in the corner and he forgets the whole thing. And that was another part of their goal. It was to be able to take a human, a soldier, on behalf of the United States, and be able to implant information, important information, almost turn him into like a courier pigeon, and send him out. And as soon as he got to the target and was able to release that information, there was some type of trigger or a pill or something, and that trigger would literally immediately erase that information in their head. So if they were captured and they were tortured, poor son bitch was getting tortured, but he legitimately could not remember because it was erased.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many crazy and unusual goals, and it's hard to say that maybe they haven't accomplished some of them.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know. MKUltra is a really weird thing. we almost didn't know about it at all.
Yep.
Yeah, it was leaked in 1974, I believe, from the Church Committee. The head of the CIA director, Richard Helms, had most of the documents destroyed, but about 20,000 of them were misfiled, and they were released under a Freedom of Information Act. So, I mean, the public almost didn't know anything about this. We do know a wealth of knowledge about it, but it was still just a fraction of what we could know. Now, they say that they stopped doing this because it didn't work.
You believe that?
Yeah.
No, I don't believe that they stopped for a minute, and I also don't believe it didn't work.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It worked. They got caught,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
and they pivoted.
There are even like notable people who were part of these MKUltra projects, like that have done things.
which gives the anecdotal evidence that it does work, like Ted Kaczynski.
And
You
my
know.
favorite serial killer. Yes, I have one.
It's an-
My favorite serial killer, Charles Manson.
Charles Manson.
Little
yeah.
Chaz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they there's evidence to show that Charles Manson was under the MKUltra program in prison. When he was in prison, they might have tested him.
Listen,
And yeah,
he's perfect for it.
yeah. I mean, fragile mind, but also smart.
Well, he kind of did it.
He did it.
So that's part of the manipulation. That's one of the many steps in this entire, ultra program. I mean, he did it good.
He seemingly emulated the program right
Exactly.
after he got out of prison, and successfully, I guess. But
Well, I mean, if they were dosing everybody, so in that time, I mean, it's
they had like fake hippie communes set up in the Haight-Ashbury. They would,
yes,
they would lure
Haight-
just random hippies in and be like, "Hey, it's take some acid, bro."
yeah.
And study these people, and Manson was in that, and a lot of the girls that he was with too.
Well, had he gotten a grade from MKUltra, it would have been an A++, because he carried it out to a T,
Yeah,
and he just remained crazy afterwards.
yeah.
It's
You
also interesting that like the social spiritual love revolution happened between this time, between the 60s and the 70s, and
It almost seems like you could credit that with just the invention of LSD, but
Well-
I mean, also apparently the government was just going around dosing everyone. So how could that not bleed out into the culture?
Gee, you couldn't tell.
yeah.
I mean, that time in the world was listen to just the music. And that was a big deal. Remember, that was a big deal. A lot of people were saying, the Ozzy Osbourne, the band,
Yeah.
Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath, brain fart, sorry. He was so satanic, the worst.
Yeah.
But if you listen to drugs, he has subliminal messages. And even worse, if you play the record backwards, there's a message. They said the same thing about the Beatles, but they were all high and all that.
Yeah.
And that is part of, because we could go down the wormhole. I feel that we're veering off of the track, so I'll get me back on track. Those psychedelic drugs, man, they unlocked something in the brain, and our government knew about it, and they wanted to take advantage of it, and I kind of don't blame them, because going back to the whole thing, I mean, for Christ's sake, I mean, we recruited Nazi scientists, torture people, and brought them over to the United States to a base in Maryland, and sat down with them and were just like, so, what do you want to tell me? That's crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, they unfortunately had it right. We were behind. We had talked about this earlier. The Japanese felt that they were superior to the Chinese, and the Japanese were doing it to the Chinese like crazy. Russians were involved. Everybody did it. The United States was just last to the table.
Only country. No.
Yeah, we were last to the table, and knowing us, we don't want to be last to anything. We always want to be first. So I think we just took it to a level that those other countries didn't maybe understand or think that it should be taken to, or frankly had the balls to do it.
Yeah.
Because if you actually research those 20,000 pages that were not lost, and you really dive in there and read some of the things, that's insane. Just from 20,000 pages, it goes that deep. The things that were destroyed about this project, the people that were involved, I mean, you got to look at it. So if the CIA approved this and they gave it the green light, did the president even know about this?
Well, that's something that a lot of people say. I mean, the president probably doesn't know a lot. The CIA, those people, they stay in their jobs for lifetimes sometimes, and they keep their secrets.
Yep.
I think it's just amazing that they were testing it on not only us stateside, But, you know, when whatever zones or areas they controlled outside of the U.S., even worse than what we were getting.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we did, like I said earlier, we did some horrible things to the Canadians.
Yeah.
If you get an opportunity to read any of those pages or even see some of the amazing documentaries that they have online, because now that, you know, it's kind of, people are interested in this again, and I find that fascinating. And I think that has a lot to do with how, again, MKUltra obviously got found out, right? And obviously that's not happening now, but it's happening in a different form. There's a new MKUltra happening with the human race at this point. And I think instead of the governments around the world working against each other to get ahead in that race, they figured out very quickly, we have to do it together. And that new manipulation is in so many new forms. It's in the form of technology. It is the internet. It is social media. Social media is the most open government mind control thing. It's a plan. It's we're part of it right now. We're on a podcast.
Oh yeah. It's really them working towards the one world government.
Correct.
I mean,
it was the Trilateral Commission. Now it's the New World Order.
It's hard not to think that, especially when everyone's walking around with like these little dopamine machines and staring at these screens and becoming more part of it and more enthralled in it every day. And you know, we think of it as just the advent of technology, but you know, we forget, you know, that we're not in control of what's going on there. You know, like Facebook hired people, like the same people that made slot machines as addictive as they are.
Yeah.
They hired the same people to do their designs and their likes. Because I mean, if you get 7,000 likes on a picture, you get a dopamine hit.
I watched a video of one of the programmers for somebody who makes, you know, social media or anything like that, and they have literally a judge, like a meter basically, of how addictive they could make something. Like videos, like TikTok videos. Like those are one of the most addictive forms of social media because they're so quick and they just grab you in and they replays and you can just play. You can go through 100 and you'll scroll by and you'll be like, what did I just do?
Yeah.
So they literally have to be like, oh, we have to tone it back down because this is actually way too addictive. They've got the brain figured out with...
It's a drug. It's the drug. It's the electronic... this TikTok, and I'm guilty of watching it, but the government is still experimenting on humans and what we think and what we want and what makes us happy and what makes us sad, and that is definitely 100% a form of control. And the algorithm, it follows you. They've got this technology that literally follows you and follows your pattern, and then I find it's recreating a pattern and it's redirecting your mind and your brain and what you like into a new direction in what they want you to like, what they think you should like. That may not be LSD in the water supply, and it may not be free joints down the street, but it's literally free. TikTok is free. The app is free. You don't have to pay a single thing to enjoy anything about it, and that's the draw.
Free drug.
You know,
it is.
You know, and obviously there's government involvement, but I mean, like when we say they, it's also big tech billionaires and giant corporations that are selling your data all in the mix. I mean, you are the product with these things. That's why they're free, because they're taking out all of your wants, likes, needs, whatever, and they're selling that to advertisement companies to sell you shit. You know, you're really, a lot of people just don't think about these things, and like, you know, nothing's free.
It's not a political statement when I say this. It is actual fact. Before President Trump left office, he wanted to ban TikTok because he knew that this was a spy from the Chinese government.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Now there are certain states, obviously all of them are red because of, you know, the political following and the belief system of that group on that side of the aisle. Government, if you are a government employee, you cannot have TikTok. It is banned on your phone.
Yeah, as it should be. Well, you know, if you think about it, going back to Project MKUltra, do you think they're still conducting it today, even though they ended it? Because, like you said, with all of these mind control devices and all these pharmaceutical companies just feeding even children all of these drugs that maybe they shouldn't even really be taking, like, how is this affecting their minds in a way that they might be mindful to what they're doing? You know what I mean?
I think it's past, and this is, again, and I won't go too deep into this, but I'm just going to dip the toe because I don't want it to. One of the things, side note, one of the things I love the most about this podcast is that your opinion is your own. You do not make anything political. This is entertainment. It's knowledge. It's a great podcast where you can learn something. So I salute you for being Switzerland, and I salute you for being neutral. So with that said, I will not enter anything political into this, but I will dip a toe and just say that, our current government understands that it is past the point of mental manipulation. And some would agree that the latest MKUltra or the newest MKUltra might be offering up individuals, knowingly and both unknowingly, the opportunity to experiment on a hormonal level, which also alters your mind. When you are introducing a foreign agent into your body that biologically was not meant to be there, what is the outcome? What can you create? And what does that mean for the future? And how do we control that? Toe out of water.
Yeah. Well,
it's a good point.
Yeah.
Because it is a drug. It's another drug.
It is.
Right?
Oh.
But now you're getting to the root, the biological root of a human being. LSD creates, what is it, serotonin?
It dumps out your serotonin while you're on it, so,
So you're...
Yeah, you're
in a state of euphoria.
Correct.
Usually in a state of euphoria, but you can easily become terrified, especially.
Yeah.
And then when it's done, you've chemically castrated yourself and you're depressed.
You're depressed for a few days after.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's crazy, though, because even though you experience the high and then you experience the low, LSD is not habit forming.
Yeah.
No,
So they knew what they were doing.
and it's actually very natural. It's a piece of a mold that comes off.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's why they
rye bread or something.
They believe that maybe in the Salem witch trials they were eating moldy old bread and they were all tripping on acid,
That makes sense because I'm
accusing
from there.
people of being witches and stuff. It's a theory that's never been tested, but yeah. But yeah, exactly. That's basically, I think that the government and sometimes the powers that be have gone from using direct drugs to using more mental manipulation powers.
To going back to drugs.
You remember, did you guys see the movie Lucy?
I did not see that.
Not a big Scarlett Johansson fan. However, the thought behind the film, groundbreaking, amazing, totally get it. There is a chemical that is produced in a female that assists during the pregnancy process to help the fetus grow into a full-grown child ready for birth. And it is a very powerful chemical, powerful enough, obviously, to assist in creating life.
Yeah.
And in the movie, they have created a synthetic version of that. And they use human beings as mules, and they surgically implant a bag of it into them. One of them is a female, and she gets dragged into it unknowingly. And that bag breaks inside of her, and that synthetic hormone is slowly being introduced into her body, and that is what unlocks when she goes through the process of going from 10% brain capacity all the way to 100% brain capacity. And when you get to the final end, you're literally matter.
Yeah, that does happen, actually. That is a phenomenon. Like, more intelligent people are usually more frustrated with the world and society, and they become more insane and eccentric,
And those psychedelics, though, in MKUltra, that's what they were achieving, But I think what they lost and what new technology nowadays has gained is that ability to manipulate, understand, turn it off, and turn it on. With the LSD, you can do whatever you want. You can give it to someone, but you don't know.
You don't know what's going to happen. It's very unpredictable, isn't it?
It is absolutely.
I assume.
Now,
so, speaking of unpredictable, Kanye West.
Yeah.
What? Was he MKUltra? Come on.
He did. He said that on a talk show. That he was on a Timcast, I believe it was, and he said that those MKUltra doctors messed with his brain or something.
Well,
and
we know who hired him, and they're called Kardashians. So, I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Kanye doesn't have it wrong sometimes. He's not MK'd enough, if that's the case.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he pushed into a little bit of it, but
it seems like he was a little unstable, and then something happened to him that made him a lot unstable.
yeah,
but
he married Kim Kardashian. That whole family would drive anybody crazy. That is the new MKUltra experience.
Exactly.
You could survive those women. I mean, but look at it. I mean, their addiction is their life. I mean, their social media, they've got cameras in their life 24/7. Nothing is private. People are glued to it. Don't think that that's not a drug too. Reality TV is insane. Mm-hmm. Reality TV, man, like I said, getting back to it, back on the rails. It may not be drugs now, but they've figured out a way to control, manipulate, follow algorithms with the social media and the internet. I mean, people were perfectly fine not having all of that information at the tip of their fingers. The world's gone even crazier now. I mean, yeah, granted, some of us were locked away longer because of COVID because we were all the way on the West Coast. But for the most part, it's like making things readily available at your fingertips. Like, that's why people have been so pissy after COVID, because everything was instant. You didn't have to deal with people. That's a drug too.
There's too much instant gratification at all. I mean, shit.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, you had to dial into the internet and wait 4 minutes, and then, it took hours or days to download the slowest. Now you have everything at your fingertips every second.
And with everything being so instant, so is the mind control.
And it's not enough.
Yeah,
and
well,
that is, and if it, when it, and I think that's a great study for the government if that's actually happening, because when we've reached a point now to where not enough comes way faster than it ever has before.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's something to study.
And
too.
They literally trained us to be that way. We have been made to consume in this way. That's why Black Friday exists.
Yep.
And all of these things.
Yeah,
the big corporations have been brainwashing us to be this way for a long time.
Keep smashing that dopamine button.
They built the hamster wheel. They had the hamster.
Yeah.
We weren't budging. Now, all of a sudden, they've made it a little bit more enticing to get on the hamster wheel. Let's see how far they can wheel until, one, they either drop, or two, they realize that it's never going to end and you get off the wheel on your own. And then when that happens, the next MKUltra project happens. What happens when the test patients, when the subjects finally catch on and realize, and then they...
the patients run the experiment.
They do.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got to say, if I could MKUltra anyone, it would be Christina Ricci into Loving Me.
Yeah, I'd MKUltra Elon Musk and just learn all of his lizard person secrets.
Oh, my God. I don't know who I'd MKUltra. I have a list. Alive or dead?
Anyone. Oh, no, there's so many.
It's too powerful. Yeah.
I would... Alive, please don't judge me. Alive, I would absolutely MKUltra President Trump.
Oh, Elvis Presley.
Ooh, that would be. I don't even.
I'd get a saddle and ride that all the way.
Oh my God,
the things. I mean, and then
man.
if I could MKUltra someone that was dead. Honestly, this sounds crazy, and it comes to mind, and it just. For personal reasons, Carlos Santana. He's not dead. No, Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just because he
that would
lived,
be a fun one.
Well, because he lived through.
Yeah,
the revolution.
To that point. That's true.
Listen.
He got the good stuff.
That music didn't come from just weed.
Yeah, no. Hendrix loved the Lucy.
Well, of course. Well, I mean, and think about it too. I mean, don't get it twisted. Getting back on the MKUltra train, all of those artists in that decade, in that time frame, experimented in all those psychedelic drugs and everything that's on the list. The peyote, the LSD, acid, heroin. They all did it. That music was, to some people it was noise, to some people it was art, and it was beautiful. But don't get it twisted. Did the government offer those specific drugs to artists like that so they could use that music to push an agenda and have subliminal messaging? Because that era was all about, all of a sudden you were anti-American if you were going to war. Everybody didn't want the Vietnam War. We hated the war. We weren't going to be pro-America. We weren't going to be pro our country. We're going to dodge the draft. We're hippies. We're not going to cut our hair. That's really when
It was a revolution. It was
Yeah.
a sexual, social revolution, you know, and it's just doesn't seem like full coincidence that the CIA was running around with a ton of acid.
I'm sure all of those artist managers were very good people.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because the music industry, we all know, is completely normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the good virtues and morals.
Yeah, I lived in Hollywood for 4 years. Yeah, ask me all about it.
All right.
Hell is under the streets of Los Angeles.
Well, we're going to end today's episode. I had a great time today.
Yeah, talking about our namesake, the Project MKUltra.
In the comments below, tell us your favorite government psyop.
or just let us in on whatever psyop we're not aware of.
Yeah, or any information we might have missed about Project MKUltra.
Really, what you should do is you should subscribe. And when you comment, because we're sending subliminal messages right now to have you comment because we're ultraing you right now, I highly suggest and urge everyone to jump online. Hippie's got it right with that Freedom of Information Act. Go ahead and read some of those documents, and that's what you should comment on because this is your namesake, so it could be a part 2. And there can't be a part 2 without you commenting on it, so...
Thanks for coming on, Kristin.
Yes, thank you.
As always, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and you RKUltra'd me to coming back. So
You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at RKUltracast.
Or find us at www.rkultra.com.
So follow... Oh, I can't do it. So follow us because we'll be following you.
thank you for having me back.